What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with the overall market and why it's very possible for the market to come down off this resistance for a temporary move down before Nvidia's earnings. And even if we do come down, we could still see a very big move after Nvidia's earnings, launching the market up or down. So I'm going to give you guys some insights about this as we're fighting some tough resistance right now, and the downside risk is still there. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or sign up to my QR code that's right over here. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of the stock. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth, and deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on invested cash, which includes a 4.1% APY base rate plus a 4% APY extra for 3 months. And the offer ends very soon, so if you want those free Nvidia shares, please check out my links down below to sign up. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So I noticed that SPY has a very, very interesting trend. So as you know, we're making higher highs and higher lows in terms of the overall trend. We had a low all the way down here at 620. We bounced, made a higher low and bounced, and then we made a higher low. But notice that we're also fighting a tough resistance at 646. And we need to break and hold above 646 in order for us to remain bullish and start pushing for essentially the 650s. So if we break out of the 646s, we're going to be looking for new all-time highs for 650. But that there's going to be a tough resistance to start things off. If you want to be bullish, you want to see 646 break today or tomorrow, or however long it takes. Break out of the 646s, I think we go for 650. But we may initially get a rejection here if we can't hold above 646. This could return back down to our EMAs. If we lose 645, I think SPY could dip towards like 643.5 or below. But then, even if we do dip a little bit today, the question is what's going to happen after Nvidia's earnings. Nvidia could dump the markets, or it could cause us to launch right back up to new all-time highs. So we'll see how things end up going. For now, the market might come down a bit, but we'll have to give this the time it needs. Nvidia announces earnings after market close. I think it's going to be a very important factor, at least for us. And then on top of this, there's been a lot of talk about some geopolitical situations. So starting off with Nvidia, all eyes are going to be on Nvidia. They're a very, very important company, at least for the broader markets. And I went over some numbers yesterday. They do typically beat on earnings, at least historically. Although there's going to be some questions about what's going to happen with the tariffs, the effects on China and such, and we're going to see what happens with their sales moving forward. So there's going to be a lot of factors affecting whether or not we see a big bounce or if we get some kind of rug pull. But it's best to be very, very unbiased and to be careful with the earnings because sometimes they can be very, very capricious, very, very unpredictable. So we'll see how that goes. But that's going to be the very, very big factor after market close. Also, keep in mind, President Trump's tariffs could affect their guidance. So guidance is going to be very, very key for Nvidia. On top of this, there's been some more news that came out involving President Trump. President Trump says that he wants to fire Lisa Cook from the Fed. However, she's not backing down. She's saying that it's not fair for her to be fired. President Trump claims that he has a reasonable cause to fire her and that he's going to gain control of the Federal Reserve and interest rates are going to be lowered. But once again, Lisa Cook disagrees. So there's going to likely be a big court case filed, and we're going to see what that leads to. I think this is going to likely go to the courts from what I'm seeing, and then that may also cause another piece of volatility for markets. So we'll see what this leads to. I think there's going to be some litigation coming up soon. Besides that, there's nothing else too crazy on the news that I'm seeing. With that being said, the European Union is set to impose, or not impose, but remove a lot of U.S. tariffs because once again, they're trying to negotiate a deal to decrease their tariffs. Right now, their cars and auto parts are facing a 27.5% tariff on exports, and they're continuing to negotiate. President Trump also talked about how his tariffs are, building lots of revenue for the U.S. and that they're once again going to be worth it. He also said that he wants to give Americans checks directly as a result of the tariff revenue. That's what he's saying so far. Of course, actions speak louder than words, but that's what President Trump has mentioned, and the market has been very optimistic, at least so far. So we'll see what else ends up happening, but that's pretty much the news, at least for now. Now, another factor affecting things is going to be some data in the future. Today, there's not really much data, but we do have bigger data tomorrow when we have GDP numbers. Today is just crude data, nothing way too significant. So with that being said, what do I see for this market? We'll notice that for bears, we do like to reject near 646. We have a tough time kind of breaking past this. We got one, two, maybe even three rejections. If 645 does not hold, we could be dipping a bit lower. So be careful with SPY. But if we do end up getting bought back up and we break 646, we could be very bullish and push higher. So watch your levels. If we don't hold 645, we might see a return back down to like the 643s for a temporary dip. But then Nvidia's earnings is either going to launch this right back up or cause a rug pull, depends on that. As of right now, I favor downside a little bit more, judging by this pattern and the fact that we like to reject near 646. Might come down a little bit first before we try to bounce, so keep that in mind. When it comes to the QQQ, the same thing. 573.5 is a tough resistance. Notice that we ended up getting some rejections off this. Now, if we break resistance right here around 573.5, we could be pushing for 575 plus. If we don't, we're looking for 570, and we're going to see if we hold or not. So you want to be very, very careful. We might be tipping to the low 570s, and we'll see if we reject or if we see a big bounce here. So we'll see how the QQQ ends up doing. That's going to be very key for us. It might dip temporarily to the low 570s or below. The Russell might be retesting 231 or so, and then we're going to see if we bounce. There's a good chance it runs to the 240s later on, but there might be a small dip today to retest our Korean line right here. That's going to be our 20 EMA. For ES, we're also dipping, so we could be once again, dipping right down here towards 64.50. So 64.50 could be where we end up dipping. We're going to see if we get a big breakout from there or if we dump lower, depending on Nvidia's earnings. For now, we might be dipping for 64.50. We'll have to see what happens. There might be a temporary dip. So we're going to see if we end up getting a sell-off back down to these EMAs or not on ES. Look for some temporary downside. NQ might retest 23,500. We'll see if we bounce or not. Bitcoin might also consolidate and retest 109,000. Tesla, it's going to likely retest 350. We're going to see if we bounce off that or not. If we break 355, it could still be bullish. And right now we're very flat. I do think Tesla retests 350. And we're going to see if we bounce off that or not. If not, we could be retesting the high 340s. We'll look for a 350 retest and we'll see how it goes. Nvidia might be dipping towards 180 flat. We have to see if 182 holds. If it doesn't, we could be retesting 180 and we'll see if we bounce. There is some tough resistance near 183 to 184. Break 184, we're bullish, but lose 182 and we could be dipping to 180. Might come down a bit before earnings and we'll see if we bounce or not, depending on how earnings go. Apple might be retesting 228 and we'll see if we bounce. 228 flat could be tested. If not, we could be retesting 226. AMD might be dipping to about 162 and we'll see if we bounce or not off that support. Coinbase might be retesting the low 300s like 302 and we'll see if we bounce. Amazon might be basically consolidating. It could retest 227.5, just consolidate, and we'll see if it breaks out. Break 230, we're bullish, but lose 225, we're bearish. It might just consolidate for now, and we'll see which way it breaks. Meta might be retesting 750, then 748, and we'll see if we bounce. Might see some temporary downside. But overall, it's just consolidating. Google's going to likely test 206 and 205 below that, and we'll see if we bounce. There could be some temporary downside. And Microsoft might be retesting 502 to the low 500s, and we'll see if we bounce or not. The VIX is also looking a little bit more bullish and might try to push for like the mid 15s, and we'll see if we reject. So give this the time it needs, especially as time goes on. So let's see what happens with SPY. Might be dipping a little bit lower. We're kind of rejecting off this resistance. So be very, very patient, at least nonetheless. It might be a temporary dip before Nvidia's earnings, but that does not mean the market has to crash. It might just be a temporary move lower. So watch 645. If it doesn't hold, we could be dipping to the 643.8 area to 643.5 for a temporary dip. And then we'll see if that holds. If not, we might be dipping a bit lower. But then we could bounce after earnings. So I'm just saying that this is just a temporary move. I mentioned yesterday the charts are still bullish, even if we get a temporary dip, and that's still the view I hold unless we start losing major support. I'll give you guys an update very soon. Until then, I wish you all nothing but the best, and peace out.